Fake Footballers. This is Greg Smith of thefakefootball.com. I'm here with my first draft video of the year. It's a little late. Sorry I couldn't get these started sooner, but better late than never, as they say. We're mock drafting today on ESPN's fantasy client. There are 10 seconds left till the draft starts. I've drawn the third pick, and we're going to see how this goes. So follow along. This is a 12-team league. Standard settings for ESPN, which means one QB, man, that sound really threw me off. One QB, two running backs, two wide receivers, a tight end, a flex, which can be a running back, wide receiver, or a tight end, defense, kicker, and 7 bench spots. Jamal Charles first off the board. There goes LaShawn McCoy. I will gladly snag Adrian Peterson here. I don't think you can go wrong with any of these three guys at the top of the draft. I am not really a believer in the zero running back strategy that's been bandied about the interwebs lately, but there is some merit to it, especially if everybody else is drafting, drafting running backs very, very highly. One thing I want to point out before we get started, and this isn't super relevant, but if you are familiar with playing in ESPN standard leagues, they have changed something this year. If you go to the league settings for their standard leagues, all this looks pretty straightforward, like same starting lineups, head-to-head points, blah, 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 right? And then you get into the scoring settings, and this all looks pretty standard too. Passing, 25 yards a point. Interceptions are -2. TDs are +4. Rushing, receiving, kickoff return, touchdowns all were 6. This is not a PPR league. Most standard leagues aren't. I don't know why. I think that tends to be the most popular way to play. Regardless, field goals generally the same, but if you'll notice down here in the defensive scoring, they have started to award points for opposing points allowed by your defense/special teams. So, or not points, yards. They've always kind of done points where, like, if you get a shutout, that's worth 5 points. If you allow less than or from 1 to 6 points, that's 4 points, and so on and so forth, right? But now they have these modifiers for yardage allowed. So if your defense gives up less than 100 total yards, you get 5 points. 100 to 199 is 3 points, etc. This is a new little wrinkle they've added. I did not know this until I clicked on the league settings just to make sure that nothing had changed, and that's what my big takeaway for you, the viewer, should be here, is that no matter where you play, what site you use, even if it's a home league, you need to know your settings inside and out. I don't know if yardage allowed stats for team defenses is really going to affect how you draft your defenses. I mean, the good ones tend to be good because they don't give up many yards, and typically the most correct strategy is just to stream defenses anyway. But let's say that something else was different. Let's say that ESPN suddenly made all their standard leagues PPR. If you shut up for this draft, assuming everything was the same as last year, that is not point per reception, you would be playing at a disadvantage and valuing the wrong things in your players. So with that, I'm going to pause here, and I'll catch up again towards the end of the second round when I'm about to make my next pick. Okay, we're back, and after I took Peterson, the next picks were Matt Forte, Peyton Manning, Eddie Lacy, Marshawn Lynch, Calvin Johnson, Jimmy Graham, Arian Foster, Aaron Rodgers, and then Doug Martin. We do have a handful of auto drafters, unfortunately, here in this league. This is not a mock draft. This is an actual, ESPN standard league. I don't know why people would just join it and then, not draft it, but it does happen all the time for whatever reason. We'll stick through it for a couple rounds. If we need to, we'll fire up another draft if this one gets a little too stale. With that said, I've kind of rearranged my screen here to show the Fake Football's staff consensus rankings here. These are available on thefakefootball.com. Right up here on this little tab, you can scroll down. You can sort it by standard or by PPR. You can look at it positionally if you like. But right now we're just looking at the overall rankings. I'm not going to follow these to a T by any means, but I am going to kind of keep an eye on where these rankings are at relative to who's available, and make some picks kind of loosely based on this. My rankings are included in here, as well as Chet Gresham's and Jeff Brubach's. So Yeah, two picks up left here before I go. One of them is an auto pick, which means that the top ranked player on ESPN, Des Bryant, AJ Green, will not be making it back to me here in the second round. With that said, the top ranked player on our big board is Monty Ball. A lot of people are touting him as a first round running back. I did take a running back in the first round myself with Peterson, so I'm not extremely excited about taking another running back in the second round. With that said, if he's the best available, that tends to be how I draft, at least for the first 3 rounds. I'm not going to let position scarcity or team construction really dictate who I pick this early in the draft. It looks like after that pick was made, who went? Oh my God, I missed a bunch of picks. Excuse me. Zach Stacy, Demaryius Thomas, DeMarco Murray, Alfred Morris, Nick Foles, Alshon Jeffrey, and AJ Green. So Nick Foles, second QB off the board. Wow, that is a trip. Top ranked player on ESPN right now is Drew Brees. I'm looking at Des Bryant ranked second, and I'm pretty comfortable with Peterson being my first pick here. I'm going to take Des. He is definitely the next highest player we have ranked here, besides Ball. And the reason I'm making the pick like this is because I do believe there's a shot that Monty Ball will make it back to me here after the wraparound picks at 23rd, 24th, 25th, and 26th. And if that happens, then I will gladly snatch up Ball there. Bernard might also be there. Basically, you can't really go wrong with many of these guys, and I'd rather take the elite receiver, considering I've already drafted an elite running back. So, Des Bryant, welcome to the team. Let's see what these two yahoos on the end do. And with LaShawn McCoy and Jamal Charles being their picks, I think they'll feel a little bit more pressure to be taking maybe wide receivers or quarterbacks here, especially with Drew Brees and I'm assuming Aaron Rodgers on the board. Let's see. Oh, that's sorting by running back, sort by quarterback. No, Rodgers was selected. I must have missed that. Le'Veon Bell was drafted by one of them. And let's see. Let's get back to just general idea what I'm trying to do here. And I've tweeted a little bit about this. I went on not a rant, but a stream of tweets a few weeks ago, basically detailing that I'm just trying to collect elite assets, especially early in the draft. I just want the best available commodities. I want the guys who are going to score the most raw points relative to their positional brethren, as it were. So, kind of basically drafting by tiers. So after Le'Veon Bell was taken, Julio Jones, Andre Johnson, and Drew Brees were taken. Glad to see my logic worked out there. It was all QBs. I think I'm going to take Ball. I do generally like to just start snatching up really good wide receivers in the second through fourth round. Kind of not quite 0 RB, but I do like getting a running back with one of my first 2 picks. The reason I'm going to take Ball here is because I do think that he is a first round talent, and I'm getting him in the 3rd round. Whereas a lot of these other guys, Jordy Nelson, Antonio Brown, Randall Cobb, Vincent Jackson, these are the top ranked ESPN wide receivers. These are guys that, probably typically would go around this time in an ESPN standard draft. So I don't feel like I'm getting much value by taking them here. Whereas Ball, I feel like, is pretty wildly underrated by ESPN's overall rankings compared to some of the other running backs that went ahead of him. I would definitely take Ball over, Le'Veon Bell, Alfred Morris, some of those other guys in general. So I'm going to take him here. And I feel like I've started off with basically 3 first-round level talent players, or at least upside players. There's a very good chance Monty Ball is a top 6 running back this year. Adrian Peterson is consistently in that discussion, and Des Bryant is pretty consistently in the discussion for top 3 to top 5 wideouts. So I feel really good about this start, to be honest. I am a chronic QB waiter. I would not have even sniffed at Drew Brees there if he was available, or Aaron Rodgers for that matter. But with that said, now that I've got kind of the base of my team laid out with Peterson, Ball, and Bryant, I'm going to be kind of focusing a little bit more on positional needs. That means more wide receivers, something for the flex, and probably a wide receiver for the flex in most cases, because the running back talent does drop off pretty steeply. But definitely not taking a defense or a kicker anytime soon. But running backs, wide receiver is going to be the focus from here on out. And I don't know, maybe when the value seems right, we'll jump on a quarterback. I'm going to pause again until we're closer to the next pick, and we'll recap the picks that have been made. Okay, since my last pick of Monty Ball, the next players selected were Jordy Nelson, Rob Gronkowski, Antonio Brown, Deshaun Jackson, Julius Thomas, Randall Cobb, Gio Bernard, Larry Fitzgerald, Vincent Jackson, Jordan Cameron, very early for Jordan Cameron, Ben Tate, Pierre Garçon, Ryan Matthews, Matthew Stafford, and just now Keenan Allen. So some good wide receivers in that group. Fitzgerald, Jackson, Keenan Allen had a kind of a breakout season last year. Randall Cobb, a lot of people are a big fan of his. The impetus behind the zero RB strategy is generally that rounds 2, 3, and 4, you tend to get the best value at wide receiver, right? Now, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that because, if you happen to pick the right player in round 2 that isn't a wide receiver, then you still get good value, right? It's just that there are more chances to hit on players whose ADP typically falls in that range. Vernon Davis was just selected, and there goes CJ Spiller and Frank Gore, so it's on me. Our top-ranked wide receiver at the Fake Football here is Victor Cruz, and just behind him would be Roddy White. So we could talk about one of those two guys. Some other names to consider here: Wes Welker, Percy Harvin, Michael Crabtree. Just to see who else is available here. Cam Newton is the top-ranked quarterback on ESPN. I'm not taking a quarterback here, especially knowing that one of or both of these guys has them. I think Breeze was taken by one of them. So there's a good chance that only one quarterback would be taken before this next pick, and even with that next pick, I'm probably not taking one. With that said, definitely looking at a wide receiver here. The running back options aren't bad, but let's see. It's probably going to be Cruz or White, and we do have Cruz. What is that? 2 or 3 spots higher? We actually have Cruz, Crabtree, White in our rankings, and personally, I have Cruz 1 spot ahead of Roddy White, and Crabtree a little further down in my overall rankings. So yeah, let's take the Salsa Dancer Supreme and see what happens when it gets back to us here. We are kind of at a turning point in the draft where I filled out my 2 required running back spots, my 2 required wide receiver spots. So if I want to keep drafting those positions, I'm looking at who's going to fill my flex. And do I want that to be a running back? Do I want that to be a wide receiver? I mean, in years past, running back was the not obvious choice, but the consensus choice. That you always wanted someone who's going to get more touches. And we're starting to see that shift. We're starting to see, more teams move to very passing-heavy offenses, leaning more on the passing game as a whole, and that leads to just higher volume for some of these other guys. A guy like Crabtree or Harvin, these super elite athletes, very talented guys who just have no problem, getting open, especially with the way that, defenses aren't allowed to play defenses physically as they used to be. So with that said, there's more of an argument for using that flex spot on a wide receiver these days. So the picks in between mine were Roddy White, Cam Newton, Wes Welker, and Andre Ellington. So we are kind of looking at Michael Crabtree as the top-ranked wide receiver on the Fake Football's consensus ranks. Top-ranked running back would be Toby Gerhart. I am not really a Gerhart believer. With that said, I have him and Crabtree ranked very similarly in my own personal overall rankings at 45 and 46. It is worth noting that my colleagues here both like Gerhart a lot more than I do, so maybe I'm undervaluing him. It's quite possible. Honestly, I think he's not going to stay healthy. He never did as a part-time player. Why would he as a full-time player? Just for grins, let's look at the quarterbacks because, who knows if people are clamoring for that. Luck and Griffin and Kaepernick are the top-ranked ESPN options. I like Griffin, I think, the most of that bunch. I think in a league with 4 points per passing touchdown, I want a guy who's going to rush. I want the Griffins. I want the Kaepernicks. I want the Cam Newtons. With that said, I think I'm just going to lean on the other end of Kaepernick and take Crabtree here and slot him into my flex. He has the same bye week as Victor Cruz, I just noticed. I have absolutely no problem with that. If anything, that just means that maybe my Week 8 matchup won't be as good. But that just means that every week that's not Week 8, I'll have both those guys in my lineup. Fingers crossed, knock on wood, all that fun stuff. So, in general, back to Crabtree versus Gerhardt. That is an instance where, volume very well could dictate that Toby Gerhardt was the more valuable back there. And I don't trust him. That has a lot to do with it. And I actually do believe in the Niners offense this year to kind of take another bit of a step forward, and maybe not necessarily a step forward, but just a little bit more emphasis on passing as opposed to running. Frank Gore's not getting any younger. Kaepernick just signed a huge deal. I think that, whether it works out or not, they're gonna be throwing the ball more. And Crabtree, when he's in the lineup, really facilitates that. So I know I'm arguing against someone I believe to be injury prone in Toby Gerhardt, and I just took Michael Crabtree, but I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's a little hypocritical, I have to admit. But that's what makes fantasy fun, right? You get to have these opinions. You get to, ignore the warts on some players and embrace the upside of others. And we'll see how it works out. I like the way this team is shaping up. Actually, the Victor Cruz pick doesn't feel great to me in hindsight, but the fact that I got Peterson and Ball in the first 3 rounds should make up for that. So anyway, I'll pause again and recap the picks since Crabtree when we come back.